Hello and welcome to the Dicebreaker Podcast. I'm back in the UK. I'm joined this week by Maddie. Hello, Maddie. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Very warm.
It is very warm. It's just the two of us because it turns out post-Gen Con, middle of a heat wave, it's a lot.
Everyone else is melted. It's just us,
Yes,
the only ones that are still solid.
it's just us. We are made of bronze or some other unmeltable bronze melts.
Yeah. Tinfoil?
Whatever.
Something.
Sure, that'll do. Yeah. We're here to talk about, well, everything that we've been up to recently. A bit of Gen Con, a bit of what we've been playing, just stuff in general. It'll probably be a slightly shorter episode than usual because of the heat and because of everything else. But we're going to see how we go, and I'm going to pray that my laptop makes it through because it's already not coping.
Struggling.
Yeah, I feel like I need to just seat it on like a little ice bath or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For a pet, when you like freeze their food or something, like freeze
Yeah, I need to freeze my laptop's food. I need to just put like frozen CD-ROMs into it and be like, this will cool you down. It'll be fine.
Nice, you like it.
But yeah, hello everyone. Hope you are surviving all right in the heat. And if you're joining us live, thanks for joining us. We're an hour earlier this week. It's my fault. I have to leave a little bit early because I'm off to go and pick up some cats at some point.
Best reason to leave early. I'm so excited.
I'm also excited. Yes, my wife and I are fostering some kittens for a little while they find homes. They're named after butter. They sent us their names. Yeah, so the mum is called Marge, and then the cats are called like Flora, Clover, Bertoli. Yeah, I mean,
So
I guess at some point, if you're an animal shelter and you have a lot of cats coming in and out, you just got to find some names somewhere. So you you open the fridge and you're like, you know what? That'll do.
Buttercat, yeah.
Buttercat, yeah. We can finally answer that the thing of like, if you put butter on one side of a cat, does it still land on its feet? Because toast always lands butter side up, and cats always land on their feet.
Yeah.
Please don't butter your cats, especially in this heat. How you doing, Maddie? How's the last week been for you?
It's been good, yeah. Working on some fun videos, and I've got to hear about that fun stuff like Gen Con. I've got to try a couple of fun Gen Con games that you guys have brought back in your suitcase, which is very exciting.
Oh yeah, because we played Evergreen yesterday, but then as I was leaving, I think Wills was setting up Decorum.
He did. It was so fun. Yeah, we got about an hour in before I had to leave, but it was great. I'm excited to get more into that because so fun. Honestly, the best game. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. I just can't stop thinking about it.
Well, let's get stuck into it then, because I think like Wills and I played Decorum at Gen Con in Indianapolis, but we were obviously playing like the 2-player scenarios, which are entirely different to like the 3 and 4-player scenarios.
Yeah, it sounds it. He was like explaining things like, oh, in 2-player you do this, and like obviously in 2-player you can like communicate in the house meetings and things. But basically you're like your roommates trying to decorate an apartment, but you all have very different specific tastes of what you want it to look like. But you can't really tell each other. You just like say passive aggressive comments at each other, which is so funny. So we also like paint the kitchen wall blue, and I just look at him and be like, I hate that. And that's like all you have to say, and it's just so good. Yeah, so I know you guys play 2-player. We played with 3 of us, me, Liv, and Wheels, and it was so hard. Like, Liv and Wheels were like almost getting there with like coordination, and then I would always just be like, I hate it. And everything I did, they'd be like, I hate it. I hate what you're doing. And I'm like, why does no one like my choices?
It was tricky with 2 as we got into some of the later scenarios, because it just naturally ends up as like, it's like one, they seem to, the scenarios are specific, and I assume it was similar with like 3 people, but in the 2-player ones, it's like one of us would have like no lamps on the left-hand side, but then the other person would have like lamps in at least 2 rooms. So there's this kind of like natural crossover point where you're both using kind of the same objects, but not quite. But we didn't like, I think there's, with, like you say, with 3 and 4 people, you add in the housemates, which aren't a thing in 2. It's just the 2 of you like back and forth.
Yeah, we didn't actually even get to the housemates yet, because we were like, we were just like kind of like warming up into it, and we were like, this is already so hard. I can't imagine trying to add like another element. I think definitely like after playing it once, I'll probably be better at like noticing what other people are doing next time, because I think I was so stressed about just trying to like get my things done that I like had no idea what anyone else wanted to do until like the house meetings, obviously.
Yeah, like we got to a point with 2 of us where it's like you almost experiment where it's like, okay, I've got like an idea that the problem is with lamps. So I'm going to like put a lamp in this room and see if it goes okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that didn't go okay. So I'm going to change the type of lamp and see if that works. Or I change the room. Or before we started playing at Gen Con, I was kind of looking at it. I was like, okay, like there's not loads to this game. You just kind of like, there's no real action. You just kind of you either put a thing into a room, you take a thing out of a room, or you swap it. And that's kind of it. And I was like, okay, like, I was a bit, skeptical. And then as soon as you get into it and you start that, like you say, like passive aggressive comments of like, I hate that. Like, I hate, why have you done this to me? Like, why have you painted the kitchen blue?
It's so good. I love the idea of like it being in real life, and like your friend like brings home a new lamp they bought and put it on the table, and you're like, I hate that. Like,
just immediately.
Like, I love that. It's so good. And then you have house meetings. Sorry, go on.
No, you finish up.
So when you have house meetings, when there's 3 of you, you can only tell one of the other people something that like you're trying to do. So it's like me and Liv would be like texting behind Wheels' back, like, I hate when Wheels does this because I want all the walls to be different colours and he keeps painting them yellow, and it's like, and he has no idea what we're talking about. And then like when he does something, we're both like, no, we both hate that now because we know what we both want. And he's like, what's going on?
That's good. Yeah, because like they call it the game on the box. It's like, the game of passive aggressive like decorating or something like that, or cohabiting. But it's not. A point is not that passive, because you are just straight up like, I hate that lamp, or I hate what you've done with this room.
Yeah.
It's just very like in your face. But yeah, it's good. Like it doesn't feel mean, because obviously you're all kind of working towards the same end. You're not working against each other. And obviously it's all in the game of like saying I hate that or I love that.
Yeah, it's always like funny. It doesn't feel like everyone's so mean to me, like no one likes what I'm doing. I just find it so funny, like everyone hated everything I did. Like I think I did like 2 things and people were like, yeah, that's okay. Everything else they're like, I hate it. I hate what you do.
3 players sounds hard, because you've got that just like the extra person in between, where it's like every time 2 things change, so you can't even just go. Like when it was just the 2 of us, it would be like one person would change something and then the other person would immediately change it back to be like, no, that's not like that. Don't change that lamp. That lamp needs to be there.
You can just like push it gradually, whereas like, when there's 3 of us, it's like there's so many different moving parts that I'm like, I don't know why everyone's mad at me for this. Like you're both mad at me for different reasons, and it's very confusing. But so fun though. Like it's so fun trying to work it out. And then like when you get the house meeting and they're like, I need all 3 yellow items. It's like, oh, it makes so much sense. And like now you can help, and like it starts like clicking together. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, it was a real highlight of Gen Con. So for folks who have maybe just joined us, we're talking about Decorum, which came out, I think it actually came out a couple of months ago, so it's not brand new out at Gen Con, but it was the first time that Wills and I played it, and then we brought back a copy to the UK. It's from Floodgate Games, so the folks that made Sagrada, the like dice stained window game, but this is a very different game. It's really, really cool. It is surprisingly like it is a scenario based game, so like we're saying, like you have different scenarios for 2 people and then 3 and 4 people, and they will be things like you are a newlyweds who have just moved in, or you are like housemates, or there are different setups.
Like it's a couple and then one other person. So like, because Wheels and Liv kept being like so on edge, I was like, I'm obviously the other person. Like,
you were just like the third wheel trying to.
Like they have like they're a couple, and like I'm just like their friend who's also here, and I do not meld
just
well
trying to change the decorations and getting outvoted,
which is very rude of me, and I love that scenario.
Yeah, they do they do a really fun job with like I said, there's not a lot in that box, and there's like only a tiny like a couple of sentences of writing for each scenario.
Yeah.
But like it was just very funny to be like, oh, okay, there's one where you've got a guy that is like genuinely quite cool and stylish, and then you've got a guy that calls himself the Stevenator and is trying to like emulate the other guy, but just clearly has no like fashion taste or like style. So there's the first guy trying to make the house stylish, and the second guy trying to make what he thinks is stylish, but just like screwing it up at the same time. And like, it manages to come through in just swapping a bunch of lamps about and painting some walls.
You can really feel like a little story emerging. It's great.
Yeah. It was very good. Have you been playing much else?
I've been playing more Magic, back on my Magic thing now. as I mentioned before, I played some more Commander, which I think I lost. I always lose Commander when it's like 1v1, but I always do really well when it's in a bigger group because the deck I have is a black-green, and I just got to like really like build up to it, and if people ignore me long enough, I can like kill them all quite quickly, which is great. But one-on-one is very hard, but very fun. And then I played some regular Magic, which was also fun because I've only ever played Commander, so it was fun to kind of just do a little kind of less health kind of. You
feel like, wow, I have no cards here. Like, where did all my cards go?
Yeah, I've got so many fun to have doubles. I'm like, you hate this card? Well, I've got another one of it, so enjoy that. Very, very fun, very good. I love Magic. It's just great, you know. We all know what Magic is. Not much to it. And then I also played something that I picked up at UKGE ages ago, and I finally played it. Which is the Tea Dragon Society card game.
Yeah.
So cute. It's based on a comic, which I really like, which is about tea dragons. And the game is about, like, you pick a tea dragon, and the whole thing about tea dragons is that the tea you can, like, collect for them because they, like, grow, like, little jasmine leaves off them, like, have memories in them. So basically, you're kind of, like, looking after the tea dragons, trying to collect memories, that's basically it. The art is so cute. It was really fun. It's just a very like peaceful, like sweet, wholesome game, and it's really nice, kind of like Sunday afternoon thing. So
nice,
very good.
Very nice. I feel like tea has been like a trend in board games as of late and RPGs, because there was a game I think we covered on the website a while ago, but it was at a Gen Con called I think Tea Time Adventures. I think it's from Snowbright Studio, but it comes with like suggested tea pairings. For you to drink as you go along this RPG adventure. Yeah.
I put that on my wholesome games list because that was so cool.
It's really good. And then there was a board game called Chai that was about growing tea. So I don't know. Tea is one of the trends of 2022, I guess.
I'm all for it. Those are all like high up my list of things that I really am excited about.
I mean, it's nice to have something that's not just more like monster slaying and or
so true.
Like trading of spices and wheat.
There's something so like satisfying about tea. It's just a very nice like thing, like a nice little like ritual of like making it, and it's just like nice and feels like fresh and good. I just love tea. And then you know, Brits Abroad got to the hotel room in Indianapolis, and there was no kettle because that's just not a thing in the States. There was like a microwave, I guess, to warm up your water if you want to make tea, which I think is how Americans do it. I'm sure we have some Americans in the chat who can. Horrid. Anyone who does that, I judge you very harshly.
It's like here, there's arguments over like, do you put the milk in first? Do you put the water in first? Whereas in America, it's just like, you know, slam it in a cup, stick it in the microwave, easy peasy. Yeah, you've started off piece with the water, so everything on top of that is going to be shaky foundations. But yeah, in general, like Indianapolis, it was my first time out. Will's first time out. First time we've ever been to Gen Con, both as people and as Dicebreaker. Because we launched after Gen Con 2019, and then you may have heard a pandemic happened.
I think I know that one.
Yeah, so it was interesting being out. Obviously, folks who went out stayed safe. There have been some reports of COVID since. Which obviously they had a mask policy, they had a vaccination policy, but it's never 100% protection. Luckily, Wills and I so far are all in the clear. But yeah, it was an experience. I didn't know what to expect.
That's fair. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I've covered it from the outsides before, but I didn't expect, for instance, people playing lutes in the hallways and singing songs about ring raves, and there was a balloon dragon, and there was a really cool thing by the entrance as we walked in, which I think they called card Halla, as in Valhalla, but cards.
Yeah.
And it's like a load of old Magic cards, a load of old Pokemon cards. There was some just real deep cut like trading card games in there. I guess just leftover cards from this and that. But people were building like these incredible structures out of them. There was kind of like a recreation of the Empire State Building. And people build them through most of the weekend, Thursday through to Saturday, I think. And then at the end, they get people to throw change at them, like just quarters and such, knock them down, and all the money goes to charity. So it's for a good cause.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, but people just built these incredible like things just out of a load of trading cards. It was really impressive.
Wow. That's That's such like a fun thematic thing to do that I would never have thought of, and also fun that it's for charity. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was neat, and I think that was the thing of Gen Con. Having been to things like Essen in Germany and obviously UK Games Expo here in the UK, there was like just a lot more happening in corridors. There were panels,
like
and even the hotels around the main convention center in Indianapolis, had a load of rooms for playing stuff, and it kind of took over the whole like center of the city. It was cool. We met a lot of very nice people. We defeated Cole Worley and crew at Shuffleboard. Designer of Root and Oath and such. We met up one night in a bar, and then we played Shuffleboard, which truly Gen Con 2022's game that wasn't released anywhere close to 2022 was Shuffleboard, which Wills and I played, I think, every night once we discovered it.
I love that.
We just we tried going elsewhere. Like there was some industry dues and parties going on, and some of one of those we arrived to, and about 10 minutes later they're like, do you want to go play Shuffleboard?
It's not Shuffleboard, yeah.
Yeah, so we went back to the old faithful.
Nice.
Shuffleboard, I've never played it before, but I know that it's around in a few places. So it's a very long table. They're also very expensive, because I then started looking them up, being like, I wonder how much it would cost to have a Shuffleboard table. And they are thousands of pounds, from about, I think, $2,000 up to about 20 grand they run.
Oh my god. Okay.
And it's enormous. It's probably about 10 foot long, something like that. And it's this it looks almost like a bowling lane. It's just a very long run of wood.
Yeah.
And then around the edge of it, at least on this one, there was just kind of like a gutter, or like a pit for things to go in. And playing it is super simple. So you have these pucks that are they're pretty hefty. They're big old metal pucks.
Metal.
And you slide them from one end of the table down to the other. And then there are lines, and as you cross each line, you go from 0 points to 1 point to 2 point to 3 points. And if you get to the very edge of the table, but don't fall into the gutter, and have a little bit of the puck just overhanging, you get at least what we called a hanger, which is then worth 4 points. So it's worth an extra point on top of the 3 in the last area. And you get 4 pucks each. Both you alternate turns. You can knock obviously your opponent's pieces out, because the scores are only calculated at the end.
I love that.
And that's basically it. And it's like Crokinole. And if folks have been watching this channel before, they'll know of Crokinole. In that it's just like a super simple dexterity game. You are just sliding pucks and trying to get them to go in the right place. But it becomes so entertaining, so competitive. It's like a really good crowd sport. There were just groups of us watching, and we then started to play team games and alternate that way. And one of the it's kind of a genius thing, I suppose, but it's super simple, is that there are scoring zones on both ends of the table. So once you slide your pucks down, all you do is walk to that end, and then you just shoot from that end up to the other. But that then means that because there's it's actual sand that they use to kind of I guess lubricate the table. I don't know if that's the right word, but to make the puck slide, they put a load of sand on it,
right,
to make it smooth. But then because you're swapping ends, and because sand obviously gets shifted around by the pucks, we started to develop home and away ends, where I was quite good from one end, and then we would switch to the other end, and I would be complete crap and just ditch everything in, and you would have to learn the kind of layout of the sand, because you'd get little spots where the pucks would stick. So you could aim for those if you wanted a quick stop, or there were areas where the sand was thicker, so it would be a lot kind of looser, and it wouldn't slow down as much. Which is it's weird to think of that much about a game that's just I'm going to slide a puck down the table. But we were so into it. It had the thing of when we first encountered Crokinole at PAX Unplugged in 2019. We sat down to play, and we're like, okay, we'll give this a shot. We've heard about Crokinole before. And then we played for 4 or 5 hours in a row, because it's just the kind of thing that just hooks you. And Shuffleboard was the same. Every night, we do some other stuff, we go see some people, and they'll be like, let's go play Shuffleboard. Let's go play Shuffleboard. We played with Cole Worley. We met up with Spencer Stark of Alice is Missing, and his wife, who were very, very lovely. Appreciate the time, but yeah, we were just like, we were taking on the world of Shuffleboard, the world of board games. So yes,
so
Shuffleboard. Dicebreaker recommends Shuffleboard.
First one. Have you got a spare 20 grand lying around?
Not currently, but you know, maybe one. If there are Shuffleboard sponsors out there that want to send one to the office, we'll find space.
We will make space.
I genuinely don't think one of those would fit in our studio. They are so long. It's just an enormous like dining table. But yeah, Shuffleboard was very, very good.
The simplest games often are so good and like so entertaining, have such longevity, even though you're like doing the same thing over and over again. It's like watching a dog chase a stick and you're like, how is that entertaining? And then we find like the human version of it and we're like, I want to do this for hours.
It was that. And I think it helped the bar we were in, which was the Severin in Indianapolis, just over from the convention center. It was a very American bar. So they had multiple TVs showing all sorts of sports. And by the Shuffleboard table, they had like ESPN 1, I think, which is like American football, like baseball, your big kind of like popular sports. Right. And then they had ESPN 8, which I think was like the dregs of sports, but also some of the best. So they had the World Air or the National Air Guitar Championships one night. So we were just watching that in between shots. They had Extreme Chase Tag, which is just it, but you play it for like 20 seconds and there's parkour involved and a load of obstacles. If no one's seen Extreme Tag, go and check it out. It is incredible. Like people are doing flips over bars just to try and like tag each other.
That's so cool. I want that sports channel. I want just like
it's good. ESPN 8 apparently is the place to be.
If I'm ever in America, I'll be flicking straight to.
Just like I need my air guitar championships. I need to see Ricky Stinkfingers perform as one of them was called.
The championships, I'm busy all weekend. I got my snacks in. I'm really, I love that.
Have you been playing anything else?
No, that's pretty much it from me. So I think you've played. Oh, other than Evergreen, which we played together.
Oh yeah, Evergreen. What did you think of Evergreen? This was another Gen Con release.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it was really fun. I like quite a peaceful game. I'm into that. Like I'm happy that we're all just like doing our little thing. Like I'm fine with games like that. I know some people really don't. Like they want to interact if they're playing a board game, but like I quite like that kind of thing. And I think I'm very shallow in that if it's like a theme I like, I'll be very excited about games. So I'm like, it's a little planet where you're planting trees, like in different kind of locations and there's different seasons. That's like my vibe. So I thought it was really fun. I would happily play again.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I think you're right. Like the theme does a lot for it. I think, and the tree paws as they call them, the little wooden trees, are very cute. Yeah. It's got like just a nice look. It's very like pastel colors, like pastoral kind of theme, and you had a lot of trees. It was kind of interesting seeing. So for those who missed it, we played on yesterday's stream with all four of us, and you had like a lot of trees everywhere.
Yes.
Will had like a lot of stuff in the bottom half. And then like Liv and I were kind of more spread around, and it felt like we were each kind of like taking a different kind of tactic.
Yeah, when I looked at other people's boards, I was like, we've all got such different layouts and like different things we were doing. Like you were making good use of the shrubs. Like me and Will's were all about lakes. Liv was like collecting like the power where you get like extra points and stuff. So although it looked and like at different stages, it looked like one of us was like definitely in the lead, but then at a different, like by the end of it, when we were adding up the points at the end, it was very interesting to see that all of the different techniques were like could have got you quite far. Like obviously Matt, you came out on top like pretty significantly, but like we were all like like 20 points behind kind of thing, which was kind of like you could get that up like the next time you play, which is fun. It didn't feel like, oh, this is the way to win. I have to do that next time. I was like, yeah, I can plant my little trees. Like I can do that next time.
Yeah, it was, and like you say, so it's from the designer of Photosynthesis, which is like a really aggressive game in a way that some people just didn't gel with, because it's a game that in which you grow trees, but as you grow trees, you block other people's light, so their trees don't grow. So it's just like a real kind of like, nah, like screw you, I'm just gonna build in your way.
Yeah.
Whereas this, like you say, you're on separate boards, you've got your own kind of planet. The only time that you really kind of come into conflict, you can call it that, is like drafting cards in the first half of each round. And even then it's not there were a few moments of like, oh, you took the card that I need,
Yeah.
but like generally it's like, okay, you know, I can work with this. Like,
yeah, there's like 5 to pick from. There's a card for like each of you, and then an extra, which I think is nice. So it's not like you're just left with the last one. You've always got like at least 2 to pick from. So it's like, yeah, like there's options still, and there's always something you can do with it. You can kind of like everything you can do is helpful to help you win. So it's like I can tweak my strategy.
Let me just get rid of this bot in the chat.
Yes.
Hello to the bots. Welcome. It took you a little while to find us this time. Yes. Evergreen. I like it a lot. Like I say, they had a number of copies at Gen Con. It's properly out in October or after October, early October at Essen. So if you're interested, go watch that stream and then maybe go check it out. In terms of other stuff that maybe didn't get mentioned, you can go and watch what Wills and I thought of stuff at Gen Con over on the channel, which is probably the channel you're already watching unless you're listening to the audio version of this. Something that we played but then didn't record a video on Sunday because our flights got cancelled and we had to run to the airport and cancel several other meetings with publishers and be like, I'm really sorry, we just need to get out of the US because we don't have a hotel. So something we met up with Tim Fowles, who made Paperback and Burgle Bros, Sabotage, a number of different games. He was very nice. He showed us Paperback Adventures, which is kind of the new game in that series, which I think is out later this year. And it's interesting. So if you've not played Paperback before, it's like Dominion, the deck builder, meets Scrabble, in that you have like a deck of letter cards and you use those letter cards to make words, and then the words give you money, and then you can buy new letters, add them to your deck, cycles around, you get points as you go, that kind of thing. So he made a sequel called Hardback a couple of years ago, and now he's making Paperback Adventures, which isn't multiplayer, it is a solo game, and it is essentially what you'd get if you mixed Paperback or Scrabble with Slay the Spire, the very popular like deck building game on PC and video game consoles. So instead of just spelling words to get money and score points, you are spelling words to defeat a boss character. And that boss character is controlled by the game, and they have like a set series of like actions. So you can use like some of your letters to like defend against attacks. You can use them to attack and deal damage. In between each kind of fight, you kind of work your way through minions to a big boss. But between those, I think between each run, potentially, you can then go back to a town and you can get new items, things like that. You get items from defeating bosses. Those go into your deck. And it was really, really cool. It got me very excited. I'm a big fan of Paperback anyway. But I thought that the way it was combined with this kind of like rogue-like like boss rush thing was really neat. Really cool. Also, it's worth saying that Tim was like, you know, Paperback, sometimes you can end up with a lot of cards in your hand. You're trying to spell quite big words. Whereas here, I think you only have 4 letters in your hand. And then each boss has like I think they call it an enemy vowel. So it's a vowel you can always use because it's like their weak spot. So you can always use an I, for instance, with one of the bosses. So it always gives you that option. But it means that there's not so much pressure on making really big words. Instead, it's like what order you put the letters in, or what the cards, depending on which way you layer them, might give you certain benefits versus the other. So you're spelling the same word, but then you're kind of deciding which card you want on top versus the other. Which it's really smart. Like I say, it kind of takes the pressure off that thing of like, I need to use all of my 7 letters. I'm going to sit here for like 35 minutes thinking of like an obscure word.
Which I can never do, so that sounds very
exactly like it's a big thing with like word games like that. It's like it does put a lot of pressure on people to basically just memorize a dictionary. And this feels more like, hey, you can just spell short little words. It's more about the actual like tactical, you know, use of your items, use of your attacks. So it's really cool. Like I said, I think it's out later this year. Tim just kind of ran us for a demo, but I was excited by it. I think he's putting out, there's like a core box, and then there are different characters and bosses in like separate other boxes. It looks lovely. Like the artwork is very pretty. I believe it's Ryan Goldsberry, who I think has done all of Tim Fowler's games to date. So it has that very distinctive look if you've seen Bogle Bros or Paperback. So yes, Paperback Adventures is what it's called, and it was very cool.
That's so cool. That sounds just such a fun mechanic to like have an adventure, because there's like a lot of different games where you can go on adventures and like fight monsters, but it's such like a unique mechanic. That sounds really fun.
Yeah. Other things, I'll quickly whiz through because, like I said, we've got videos on the site and we played a lot, so I'm not going to fill the podcast with them. But a couple of other highlights in case you missed them. Redwood, which is a new game from the designer of Colt Express, and it's a game about photography. So you move around a national park. You have like a little photographer, and then you move with like almost a template similar to something like Warhammer or X-Wing particularly. You have to like avoid animals because you obviously don't want to startle them. And then once you get in position, you have like almost like a video game Metal Gear Solid like cone of vision that is what you're photographing, and you're trying to get as many elements in the template as you can. And yeah, we got run for a prototype by Sit Down Games, which is putting it out. I think it's coming to Kickstarter in November. Might be a different date. But yeah, it was one of those games where you're like, how has no one ever done this before? Like, this is such a good idea, and it's like very, like fairly simple, so it was like easy to understand. But the fun of it was just like how you position yourself and like try and get as many different things in your photo as you can. And okay, this time you need to be stood on the lake, so you need to photograph from the lake and stuff like that. Like keeping the kind of like the foundation of it simple, and then just like making it a little bit more complex, so you've got these different objectives. But it was a real standout. Just one of those games where you're like, awesome. Like
using like things that like movement from miniatures games, but like turning that into a really cool themed board game. That's like so creative. That sounds really fun.
That was really neat. We played War of the Ring, the card game, which I've spoken about elsewhere and on the website. But I am a Lord of the Rings fan. I like War of the Ring, the board game, but it takes a long time to set up. There's a lot of rules, so it can be quite a lot to just break out on a random day. Whereas the card game, it's a completely different rule set. It's by a different designer, but it still kind of scratches that itch of it's very faithful to the books. So it like digs into some of the characters that you don't see in like a lot of other Lord of the Rings games. It kind of goes like deep into the lore.
So cool.
Yeah, and then you're either 1-on-1 or 2v2 on teams of basically, Sauron, Saruman, Fellowship, and like the Free People, so elves, dwarves, men, etc.
Nice.
So yeah, and then you fight over battlegrounds, which are just like random locations that battles are happening in. So you kind of put your armies over there, and then there's what they call a path card, which is more like the story of Frodo and him trying to resist the ring's corruption. So it's like you've got that slightly more like you get a lot more of the characters over there.
Yeah.
So you've got characters on one side, like kind of armies and leaders on the other, which is a fun way to split it and kind of capture that sense of like, okay, like Frodo's encountering the ring wraiths, but meanwhile something else is going on, like at Minas Tirith or it was really, really neat, and it feels a lot faster than War of the Ring. Like it's fairly straightforward. You just play one card each round, and then you discard one card to play one card, so you're kind of whittling down your hand from both ends. So it's not loads to think about at the moment, but there's at least a good amount of like, okay, what can I afford to lose in order to play this? It felt very good, and I am excited just to have a Lord of the Rings game that doesn't take like 6 hours to play.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Why not?
Rather than the perfect short Lord of the Rings thing, which doesn't exist in any medium for Lord of the Rings. So it's nice to have a little thing.
I think that is out later this year as well. So coming up, we were playing a prototype with cards that just said demo across them. It's like, okay,
we get it.
Before I went out to Gen Con, I wasn't on the podcast before, or I played it in the gap. So I played Wings of Glory on PC as well, which I wanted to just mention because I found myself playing a lot of Wings of Glory after I was like, I'll check this out. And then I spent a weekend just playing Wings of Glory, which is, if you played Star Wars X-Wing, it's like that, but for like World War I and World War II planes. So you have little planes, they each have like specific movement cards. So it's like you could go straight and then you could veer to the left, or you can do an Immelman turn, I think, which is like you flip over and then face the other way. But as you program them, like certain things will stop you. So if you do a very steep turn, you then can't keep doing a steep turn because you would stall. And things like altitude come into consideration. So it's like, okay, if you do this, you're going to lose altitude. And if you do that, you're going to gain altitude, but it might be slower or not put you as far forward. And then, you shoot stuff, you like bomb stuff, depending on the mission you're trying to do. The digital app I was playing, which is fresh out, which is why I was playing it, has like a load of single player challenges, and they get hard. They get really hard. There was one where I had to like drop a bomb on a target, and it's like it would only accept a perfect hit, and if I missed it, I only had like one bomb. So there was a little bit of frustration, I'll say, in that it doesn't. You have to kind of guess, like you have to say, I will drop the bomb now, but it doesn't show you exactly where it's going to land before you do it. So you're kind of trying to work it out, and if you miss, it's like, okay, well now I need to restart that whole thing. But it wasn't a major problem. But just in general, like it's like really it moves fast. Yeah, it's like a fun, quick miniatures game. And yeah, like I think the app is like fairly bare bones at the moment. Like I think there are only a few planes for each side. Whereas Wings of Glory on the tabletop, there are lots of planes. So hopefully they add those. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll be playing more of it.
Expand it out. That sounds so cool. I've never done anything like in the sky. I've only ever had like troops on the ground. Like, I've never even done like ships or any kind of vehicle. So that's.
Oh, we should play X-Wing one day, Maddie.
I would love to.
X-Wing's cool.
Oh my god, it sounds incredible. Like, big Star Wars fan. Would love to be in an X-Wing fan. So yeah, that would be so down for that.
I would say at Gen Con they have the main hall where there's kind of all the exhibitors and the booths, and then they have a tournament open play area, and they had a lot of miniatures games, and particularly they had a lot of Star Wars Legion, and the layouts they had for Star Wars Legion were incredible. Like this really nice terrain, like the landing ship, I think from like Force Awakens, that trilogy, the new trilogy. And like the very familiar like Tatooine kind of rounded domes and that kind of stuff. They were really nice maps, really nice terrain.
I'm like, I love stuff like that. And obviously having a convention is like the chance to play it, because I'm like, so few people would have the space in their home to set something up like that, or have space to store stuff for more than like one map. Like I have a big box behind me of like cardboard terrain, and already I'm running out of space, but I always want more maps. So that's so cool to like properly see like really good maps and like, this is how you could play.
Yeah, was I walked past and we were like, maybe we should play Star Wars Legion again, like it had that effect of like, when you have when you have the proper setup that almost no one could have in their home. It's like, this is it's a really impressive looking game. Like people obviously had very nice paint jobs on their miniatures. So yeah, it was, I mean, yeah, you kind of see like particularly miniatures in the best possible way, and there's like big sprawling battlefields, like very detailed landscapes. Not just like flat cardboard terrain.
This is a hill. We've just
just pretend. Yeah, like here's an unpainted block of polystyrene.
I think that's kind of fun though when you see it and it like inspires you to want to play again, because I definitely find miniatures, you can like really suspend your disbelief. Like you really like do feel like you're in the place. Like a really good one does. So even if you don't have terrain like that, you're like, oh, I can imagine that I'm there now. Like I really got a good picture of it. And when you go home and play, you can still get like so much satisfaction, even if you're not on like the big fantasy map.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously like terrain costs a lot. So anybody like just playing with what they have, like absolutely like will enjoy your games. That's the main thing. And I mean, we'll give a shout out to a video you made recently about playing miniatures games with Lego. So you don't even need to like pay for miniatures sometimes, because even those can be like a serious chunk of cash.
Oh yeah, minis, like, and especially because a lot of minis are very like, you buy one mini for one thing, and like some minis you can kind of use for a couple of things, but most often it's quite specific. But obviously I said in my video, Lego is great because you can mix and match all the pieces and use it over and over and over again, because they are meant to be pulled apart and stuff. But yes, go check out my video. a lot of fun filming all of my Lego pieces. I spent like a whole afternoon just filming Lego in the studio, having way too much fun. So yeah, go check it out if you're interested.
Did you just have some Lego already as well? Did you just have
this is all my Lego that we brought from
Oh
home.
Wow.
I've got like well, obviously we use Lego a lot. Like my fiance is a massive Lego fan. So I say our Lego, it is his Lego that I now have collective custody of. So it's very fun to just have big box of plastic to put my hands in and pull out fun
Excellent.
things.
Is it like meticulously organized into different like colors and blocks, or is it just like the classic bucket of like, here are 20 different sets that have just been combined?
Yeah, it is just so the one we have here is just like one huge box, and it's just like minifig pieces. So if you're trying to look for a head, you've got to like be like clawing through so much.
That's the best though. That's like the best experience.
You're like, what can I find in here? And you're like, who knows what I'm gonna make? I do also have a friend who has the best. Like they have a whole Lego city set up, and it's amazing. And they have like so many little organized boxes, like all of the color stuff in it, and it's like so incredible and so organized. And I'm like, wow, this must be so easy to find things for. And I'm just rooting around under the beds, like, give me my pieces.
Treading on a random head and going like, there you are.
Yeah, this one. A good reminder.
That is cool. Yes. I know a lot of big, like, I feel like Lego has really come back lately.
Yeah, definitely.
See a lot of people on Twitter getting excited about like Lego typewriters and Lego Ataris.
Yeah, Lego really they've realized, I mean, obviously they know because a lot of their sets are so expensive. They've got a big adult audience, and they're like really leaning into it more, like with all like the Mario stuff and the Horizon Zero Dawn stuff. They're like, okay, we're getting the video game audience. Like they're clawing in everybody. I love it.
I feel like what would be the first like board game to get a Lego version?
Ooh, that's a great idea. First board game for Lego.
Are there Lego? There must be Lego hexes at this point. Could you do a Catan? Like just have like hex fit, and then you just have little sheep, Lego sheep that you stick down, and
it's just like little shapes, isn't it? That'd be so easy.
Yeah,
I would love to see like a Lego Gloomhaven, even though Gloomhaven is
Lego Gloomhaven would be amazing. That is true.
It would be like double the price.
Can you imagine the weight of that box as well? Like it's already a heavy box, but putting a load of Lego inside it.
That would be heavy. A struggle. Very expensive, but so good. I'm trying to look around at my Lego sets, being like, what are you inspiring me? Who could you be? I mean, obviously, like, I am desperate for them to make, like, a Lego D&D series. Like, they've just started doing a few fantasy stuff. Like, they've just released the big new castle, which I walk past the Lego store in Brighton looking at it most days this week on my way home from work. It's very nice. So
I wonder,
I'm hoping.
that movie's coming out, right? Lego did Lord of the Rings, it did Star Wars. Maybe D&D could happen.
I feel like it could be next. And
Get a tiny plastic Chris Pine.
Yeah. Yes, this is true. Just give me more elf ears. Give me like tiefling horns. Give me fantasy. Yes, and also Chris Pine, I guess. Yay.
All right. Shall we quickly run through some headlines from Gen Con?
Yeah.
I'll keep it short, but I feel like these were the kinds of things that we haven't mentioned elsewhere on this channel. But you can head over to the website if you want to read them. Because it turns out Gen Con very busy, a lot of news. So I'll whiz through these just so folks know what's coming up. But Heroescape, I mean, Hasbro, speaking of D&D and such, Hasbro had a lot of announcements out at Gen Con. So one of them was that Heroescape is coming back, which is the kind of like not quite D&D, but kind of like along those lines, like 3D terrain and quite like almost like war gaming style combat, which I think a lot of people really liked, like back in the day. I think it's been gone for over a decade or a couple of decades even. But yeah, they had that out on a few tables. There were, stacked up tiles. I think a lot of people picked up those sets to then use them in D&D.
Yeah,
I don't personally have loads of experience with it, but I'm excited to see what they do with that, because they've been bringing back a few things recently.
I feel like everyone's bringing back everything. Every medium is bringing back like
everything old is new again. Like they're bringing back Dragonlance, they're bringing back
Yeah.
Spelljammer for D&D, and now they're bringing back Heroescape just by itself.
It's the time.
So yes, apparently there will, I guess, be some more news on that. I don't think it was just a teaser, so they didn't say like, "Hey, here's what it will be."
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's here in some form.
Yeah. So there was that. Also out of Hasbro, there is the first expansion for the new Betrayal at House on the Hill. Of course, this being the third edition of Betrayal at House on the Hill, but this is the first expansion for the third edition because the second edition already had an expansion.
Yes.
So it's not the first expansion ever for Betrayal, but it's the first expansion for this version of Betrayal. And if that wasn't confusing enough or long-winded enough, the full name of it will be Betrayal at House on the Hill 3rd Edition, The Werewolf's Journey, Blood on the Moon.
Oh my god. That's like 2 lines of text.
It is enormous. It's like a Fiona Apple album. It is just like unnecessarily long to give this game that already has a notoriously long title, so long that everyone just calls it Betrayal, a double-barreled expansion name. It's wild.
Bold.
But yeah, as you can probably guess, it will add in stuff to do with werewolves. So there will be Sarah, which Chase writes is a teenager with a dreadful secret that comes out when the haunt phase begins. She's a teen wolf. That's the secret. Spoilers. And there's also some other bits and bobs, largely around werewolves. So like new haunts, particularly around specific characters, new rooms, new cards, that kind of thing. And the haunts will all kind of center around Sarah and werewolf stuff.
Very fun.
Yeah, so it's cool. Like, I think when the new Betrayal came out a couple of months ago, we obviously played it on the channel.
Yes.
And I think at the time we were chatting about like, oh, I wonder whether they'll do Widow's Walk for this. Because Widow's Walk was the expansion they did for the old one, which I like quite a lot. I did like Roof Tiles.
Nothing but good things from you and me and everybody.
Yeah, and it added like a mini campaign in there as well, and stuff like that. So they haven't announced anything about that for this new Betrayal. Instead, they're just doing a brand new expansion, which, to be honest, I'm also very happy with. Like, I love Betrayal. More Betrayal is always a good thing for me.
Same.
And in some ways, the fact that they're not just like reboxing something that people already own is cool.
But yeah, it's nice that they're like still putting creative ideas, and it shows that like they're kind of dedicated to like, you know, keeping this alive and doing more with it, which is a good sign.
Yeah, and it's funny as well because I think Betrayal's not even out in the US yet. It's been out in the UK for a couple of months now, for a few months. So they're getting on top of it and just being like, "Yep, like it's coming. Don't you worry."
You'll have so much to do. There'll be so many things to do.
Like I think there are 50 haunts in the original box again, and this one's adding five more, at least 5 more. So, yeah, cool. More Betrayal.
Love it.
Me wrote this story as we blast through these stories at Gen Con. The next game from the designer of Wingspan, which you may have also seen on the channel, will be about foxes. So Elizabeth Hargrave very much keeping in vein with her kind of like, like natural focused games. So I think she made a game about flower ranging as well, called Tussie Mussy, I think. And this one is just called The Fox Experiment. Which makes it sound like a little like more clinical and cold than it actually is. So it's based on a real life experiment that happened in Siberia, I think back in like the 70s or something. And it was about like domesticating foxes, because foxes are somewhat related to dogs and stuff like that.
I've looked into this because I was like, can I have a pet fox? And then I was like going down a whole rabbit hole of being like, how did the study go? How is it going to be? And I think we've worked out that we have domesticated the possible domesticatable animals, and the others are wild.
Well, you know, I have no idea of the legality of keeping a fox. Probably don't keep a fox. But instead of that, you might be able to play this, and maybe that will give you the same, you know, same little buzz as just hanging out with a fox. Yeah. So yeah, this will be coming to Kickstarter. It'll be coming to Kickstarter start next month.
Nice.
So yeah, like Wingspan, really nice game. I haven't played Tussie Mussy, but yeah, like I'm excited to see what Elizabeth Hargrave does.
Me too. I love foxes, so even more excited.
Yeah, but like again, foxes just seem to be a trend in the last few years. Like Fox in the Forest, Outfoxed as well, I think was fairly popular. So yeah, Here you go. The Fox experiment is what it's called. Fox, a word that every time I worry that I'm going to accidentally cause this video to be pulled down on YouTube.
You've done it. It's fine. We'll move on now.
We're moving past that. Another quick one we got only 2 more. We're just blasting through these in this very whistle stop tour. The cat just decided to plunge from the shelf. So apologies if that was a load of noise. You all right, Hole? She's okay. She's fine. Nice. She's heard that we're fostering other cats, and she's like, "I'm having none of it."
Remember that
I will throw myself at you. Chase wrote the story about a new Star Wars deck building game, which, unsurprisingly, perhaps, is called Star Wars: The Deck Building Game. Nothing exciting here. Hey, just does what it says on the tin. So yeah, this is coming from Fantasy Flight, who do games like Marvel Champions, Arkham Horror, the card game, used to do Android Netrunner, RIP, and other things like that. A lot of living card games, but in a surprise twist, this will not be a living card game, or at least it seems like it won't be a living card game. So apparently it will just be focused on 2-player combat. So as you might guess, Luke and Darth Vader are on the box. So it's also that era of Star Wars, or at least partly. It's not necessarily just the new stuff. It looks like it's going to span the whole series. And apparently it'll be out next year. That's about all we know. It's called Star Wars: The Deck Building Game. It's out next year. It's 2 players, and it's not a living card game.
And it'll be a Star Wars deck building game.
It will be exactly that, Maddie.
Good to know. We know. That's fun, though.
Yeah, like I like Arkham Horror, the card game, a lot. Like Marvel Champions, I like. I've dabbled in the Lord of the Rings card game, but it's a little bit older, so you kind of feel that it's like, okay, you're finding your feet with this to some degree. Same with like the Game of Thrones card game, which I know a lot of people do like. But I was kind of like, okay, yeah, like this is fine, yeah. Okay, yeah. But Arkham Horror particularly, if they make a good Star Wars game like that, it could be something very cool. And finally, a hot little exclusive from Dicebreaker. Have you played Forgotten Waters, Maddie?
No, I don't think I have.
Well, you've got a little bit of time before it gets a spiritual successor in 2023, next year. So for those unfamiliar, Forgotten Waters came out in 2020 from Plaid Hat. Plaid Hat, which formerly did things like Dead of Winter, Ashes, Rise of the Phoenix Born, Summoner Wars, Will's favorite game ever. He was very excited to see more factions for Summoner Wars at Gen Con. But we chatted with Plaid Hat, and they told us that, yes, it's getting a follow-up. And specifically, this isn't a sequel, so they specifically call it like a spiritual successor.
Right.
So Forgotten Waters was like a pirate adventure game. You played with an app, you sailed around, you went to islands, you were like a little crew, and you would kind of work together. But then you would also have your own like little objectives. So there were, you were kind of like friends, but not really friends, because you got your own thing going on, but you also don't want the ship to sink because that's bad for all of you. Yes. It's a really, really cool game, and it had a very cool way of letting you play over the internet as well, with just one copy of the game, because it kind of came out mid 2020, like peak of COVID, or at least like definitely during some of the heights of lockdown. And I used that app to play with friends. Like, it was very well thought out. And the normal companion app for it is voiced by folks from, like, behind anime such as Dragon Ball Z. There's like the voice of Vegeta does a pirate voice, and I think the voice of Bulma is also in there.
That's so cool. So yeah, actors.
It's they had like quite a cast. I think maybe even one of the McElroys was in there, although I might be thinking of a different Plaid Hat game. So yeah, like Forgotten Waters, really fantastic. If you want to find out more, Charlie wrote a review over on the site, which you can go and read, in which he called it one of the best tabletop releases of 2020, and I agree. I think it's very, very good. It's cool. I'll bring it in. We'll play a game on our next game day. So yes, it is getting a follow-up. It is a spiritual successor. It is not pirate themed, but they haven't said what it will be themed around. They've just said not pirates this time. And
like spaceships.
That would be cool. Forgotten Astral Waters.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll go the Spelljammer route, that kind of thing. Forgotten Stars, I think, is already a game.
Oh no.
I'm sure there's legally distinct Forgotten Stars. Forbidden Stars, I think, is what I'm thinking of. So Forgotten Stars probably in the clear.
Totally
So two of the co-designers, J. Arthur Ellis and Mr. Bistro, are returning for this. Notably, Isaac Vega, who also co-designed Dead of Winter and has made some very good games, is not returning for this one. Instead, it will be someone whose name I now can't find in this story. Donald Schultz will be joining as a co-designer. So that's what we know. The 3 designers, it will be out next year. It's a spiritual successor. It's not Pirates. And that's about it. But I'm looking forward to it. Forgotten Waters was very, very good.
You sold me, honestly. I'm Googling it straight after this.
It's very cool. And yes, they've actually said that this will be out, the spiritual successor will be out in next year's Gen Con. So already we have our first kind of game from Gen Con 2023, literally days after Gen Con 2022. But that feels like a good place to leave this week's Dicebreaker podcast. Thank you, Maddie, for joining me and listen to me just like unpack everything from Gen Con. It was a lot.
I wasn't there. This is great. It's just my little personal scoop that we're now sharing with everybody, that I get to hear everything. There's so many exciting things, and it just means I could just make a big wish list of games.
There were a lot of things, honestly, just walking around that floor like, oh my god. But it was very exciting because, it's like cool, like stuff is coming out, like people are making very cool things. It was very exciting to see it in a room. And yes, hopefully we'll continue to see more of those cool things. We will, as a little peek ahead, we will hopefully be at EGX next month in London. We may be at PAX. We will be at PAX Unplugged even in December. We'll be at Essen in between those two. And we may be at one of the Comic-Cons as well. So, hey, if you want to come and just like watch us play some games and have fun and maybe say hi, like maybe consider that.
Come along.
But of course, if you can't make it, we'll continue to have loads of stuff on the YouTube channel and the website as well. But for now, thank you again, Maddie, for joining me on this week's Dicebreaker podcast up in Matt Jarvis. We'll be back next Friday live from probably 2 p.m. BST. We'll see how it goes.
Might be more cats.
Yeah, I'll see how many cats we end up with. I might just be covered in cats by that point. But until then, look after yourselves. Remember to stay hydrated in this heat if you're in the UK or elsewhere that's very hot at the moment. And until we meet again, have a lovely day. Goodbye.
Bye.